For the first time since their introductory press conference, Aaron Glenn and Darren Mougey addressed the New York Jets media down in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine. Plus, one big-time NFL draft analyst mocked Shedeur Sanders to the New York Jets in his latest mock draft. Is that feasible? Is that a route the Jets should explore? All of that and much more all coming up here on a Tuesday edition of NY Flight Jets Talk.
Jets, Jets, let's go.
Jets wide receiver Wesley Walker. Wesley, how you doing today? ESPN writer Mr. Rich Cimini, Jets reporter for The Athletic, Mr. Zach Rosenblatt, Hall of Famer, and Jets legend Mr. Marty Lyons.
Your host, Connor Law.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back into another edition of NY Flight Jets Talk here on this Tuesday, February 25th, 2025. Appreciate you all tuning in. Smash that like, subscribe to the channel. It's completely free. Helps us grow significantly through a little fun poll at the top of the chat. Combine's always boring. It could drag on for a little while. So I said, hey, you guys want to do a watch along for the Combine? I'm down if you guys are down. 100% of the votes say yes. So vote at the top of the poll if you want to see a watch along. If you don't, for this week's NFL Combine, I would love to, do something with you guys. Come on here, live stream throughout all the drills, because as you know, it could be boring at times. It could drag on, but appreciate you all tuning in. Smash the like, subscribe. That's the free way to contribute. The paid way helps us grow just as much as contributing to our membership/super chat raffle. Throw the ticker on down below. Every membership gifted and every $2.99 super chat gives you a ticket into our raffle. We're drawing the winner on the 28th, but tomorrow, the 26th, is your last opportunity to get in on it for this month. The prize we're giving away this month included Joe Klecko signed jersey, Mark Gastineau's signed jersey, a Bill Parcells signed photo, a free item from our merch store, and a channel emoji. So get in on that. If you haven't already, the more tickets you have, the higher chance you have to win. And then our draft party. If you missed it yesterday, Boy Green and I are proud to collaborate for the first round of the NFL draft. We'll be doing a live watch party, a ton of guests, broadcast personalities, insiders, just content creators, reporters, former GMs, former players, current players, and much more. So tune into that, brought to our great friends over at Shoreline Sports Cards and Homage. So like I said, you can go on the channel, set a reminder, and we'll notify you on April 24th when our draft party starts. Appreciate you tuning in here as always, but let's bring on our guest for today's show. Joining us here in his weekly spot, it's our guy Gunny Gumby of New York Jets Situation Report here on the program. Gunny, what's going on?
Connor, what's good, man? Appreciate you for having me again. This is week 2 of the show.
Yes, sir.
Exciting times, man. Combine's right around the corner. We were just talking about before this. It feels like the draft is coming out as fast. But, yeah, man, pumped to go ahead and talk about our head coach and our general manager, some of the thought processes from their press conferences today, man. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, Gunny, it's great to have you back on. And we're doing something right. Well, we've made it to 2 weeks now here on the show,
right?
Consecutively.
The way our schedules work, that's a win.
For sure. Now the Combine, the drills don't kick off till Thursday, but everyone seemed to get there today from a media perspective. A lot of coaches and general managers around the league spoke to the media, but we're going to focus on Aaron Glenn and Darren Mougey. What were the main takeaways from their press conference overall? My thoughts quickly here is I thought Aaron Glenn, Darren Mougey, they both came prepared. They were very prepared based on all their answers. They weren't going to get, caught lacking. They weren't going to, they didn't want to be a part of this so a headline could be made out of them the next day. They were there for business. When Darren Mougey came in right away, he was prepared. You could tell he had notes. He was ready to speak to the media in the sense of addressing the Aaron Rodgers situation right away before anyone could get a question in. Look, obviously this press conference isn't going to fire as many people up as the introductory press conference did, but I don't think it's supposed to. I know a lot of fans are going to be like, well, nothing, exciting was said. I don't think anything exciting was supposed to be said today. I think this was more, speaking to the media kind of from a business perspective and not trying to create, any jazz, any headlines with the Aaron Rodgers stuff.
Yeah, no, I think it was an articulate press conference, right, in terms of showing the command posture that both of those guys had. I think you said it beautifully, right? They came into the building and they immediately took control of the helm. They didn't allow the media to kind of run away with it. And if we're being honest, man, that says a lot about their fortitude in terms of being able to handle this kind of a pressure situation. One of the biggest things I think as Jets fans we have to worry about is whether or not the individuals coming in can handle the pressures of what it's like being in front of, New York media, that high intense atmosphere. And I don't think either one of these guys have even appeared shook or concerned about it. They've handled it pretty well. And I like that, man. I like that. Again, you want calm and collected and confident when it comes to the individual you're supposed to follow into the burning building. And these guys are coming into a burning building, which is the New York Jets organization, and they're supposed to be putting the fires out. And they are operating on all cylinders. So where you look at them, they're composed. They seem to be going in the direction at their own pace. They know what they want to do, and there's no hesitation in responding to some of the questions. The Rodgers aspect I thought was going to be a bit of a nail biter, a bit of going to catch some strays for it today. They handled it beautifully. I mean, I think them breaking down, and they didn't do it in a way that was going to be insulting to Rodgers. They simply stated that we're looking for not just to win now, which I think was them kind of giving homage to Rodgers, but looking to do so long term. And they felt that this was the best way to go ahead and go about doing that. I love the press conference, man. Like you said, it wasn't flashy. It didn't say anything about what the direction is, but sometimes you got to look at context. And I think the context said a lot about the two guys we have in charge of the New York Jets right now.
For sure. Now, Gunny, I'm going to move over to another talking point that Darren Mougey made pretty abundantly clear during when he spoke to the media today. He said he's really happy Tyrod Taylor's on the team. He's pretty high on him. This kind of echoes a report that we heard from Josina Anderson yesterday saying, the organization has high praise overall for Tyrod Taylor. Look, I'm a big Tyrod Taylor fan. I want him to be the day one starter, but I think going into the season with Jordan Travis and Tyrod Taylor as your two quarterbacks is just preparing for disaster, because we all know Tyrod Taylor, he's going to get injured at some point, whether it's week 1, whether it's week 12. He is not going to give you 17 games throughout the full season. He's shown that throughout his entire career, and Jordan Travis is someone who hasn't even partaked in a single practice with the New York Jets, so we can't rely on him for anything, but they want to trot Tyrod Taylor out there as the day one starter while it's signing a veteran and or drafting a guy or both even. I'm really big on Tyrod, but you need some sort of backup plan behind him.
No, 1,000%. I think Tyrod Taylor does give you a chance to win. Anybody who looks at this team right now and thinks like, oh my God, it's a complete rebuild, like it's over, season's already over. Tyrod Taylor is a 500 quarterback, right? Like that's better than some starters in the NFL. He's a 500 quarterback. He brings in there. He's got the experience. He can make all the throws. He's got a level of mobility that I would still put up there as being top tier. I'm not saying he's elite. I'm not saying he's still got that kind of wiggle in him at his age, but it's definitely in that, I would say, that top 10 to 15 range in terms of mobile quarterbacks in the NFL. Tyrod Taylor can win you some games. He can go ahead and operate an offense, and we've seen him do it. And again, he's a guy who protects the ball. He's got a higher TD to interception ratio. I mean, he's a 500, win-loss quarterback. But again, this is the guy who's been plagued by injuries. That's been the biggest thing. And I don't think anybody's looking at this guy and thinking to themselves, this is the year you're going to go a full 17 games. I don't think that's the case. I don't believe that's going to be the case. I think they're going to go ahead and bring somebody in. I'm hoping it's going to be somebody in the mid round. If you don't bring in a free agent, there's going to be another quarterback added to this quarterback room. Jordan Travis right now is somebody that I think a lot of us were kind of excited about, but seeing that he couldn't really bounce back from the injury last year, you have to kind of wonder if he's going to be one of those guys that winds up never really making it onto an NFL field as a pro. And that's concerning. So for me, I think you might have to bring in 2 more guys, right, into the building this offseason just to go ahead and make sure you've got somebody who understands the offense at the very least on the practice squad. If Jordan Travis winds up making, being, QB3, but at this point, man, I'd be shocked if we weren't seeing conversations dabbling in the Justin Fields, the Jameis Winstons. I'd be shocked if those things kind of went out the window. I think that it's more plausible they bring in a veteran, whether it's Winston or Fields, and they take a late flyer on somebody in the draft to go ahead and go into the season, vice staying put or just going one or the other. I think we're going to bring in 2 more guys, one veteran and one guy from the draft.
Gunny, what are your thoughts on potentially trying to trade for a quarterback? It doesn't even have to be a starter, whether it's trying to give up some day 3 capital to bring in Hendon Hooker, a player the Jets organization has a lot of insight to, given they have Aaron Glenn, Tanner Engstrand, and Steve Hyden on the coaching staff. Or Tanner McKee's even a name I've floated around with the Eagles. He's not going to get an opportunity there. Just, Kenny Pickett and Jalen Hurts obviously in front of him, potentially trading for him. And then Kyler Murray's the big one. I've heard 2 things. First, would you be interested in potentially trading for a quarterback? And number 2, would you give up the 7th overall pick this year and our 2nd rounder next year to trade for Kyler Murray?
So for me, in terms of bringing in an unproven guy from another team, just because, they've been able to sit on the sidelines, I don't see the point of that. I think that if you're going to go ahead and waste that day 3 pick or gamble that day 3 pick. Why not grab one of those mid-tier guys right now in the current NFL draft, right? Like you're going to be getting, in my opinion, the same level of value, whether it's ceiling or floor. You haven't seen those guys really operate in NFL offense. You haven't seen them in NFL games, and it's vice versa. But then you got 4 years of control with whoever you bring in, you know what I'm saying, as potentially that backup or a guy, for the practice squad, however you want to go ahead and mold it. Plus, you bring in a guy that you can go ahead and kind of mold to your tempo, to your tempo. Thank you. Tempo style, right? By somebody you would have to go ahead and kind of unteach some things and then kind of get them going. So for me, I'm not really big on the Hendon Hooker thing's been getting loud lately too, and I'm looking at it this way. If they decide to go ahead and bring Teddy Bridgewater out of retirement, who was coaching freaking high school, to go ahead and be the backup, Vice bringing him up, that says a lot to me in regards to his ability. And maybe that's just me being naive or being negative.
No, not at all.
I just don't see the point of risking, a 4th or a 5th when you can do that in this draft and potentially have the upside of surprise, right? Somebody might come in and just surprise you with their ability at the NFL level. In terms of Kyler Murray, listen, I'm a fan of Kyler Murray. I am. I think he's one of those guys who was exciting when he came out as a rookie, offensive rookie of the year. This is a guy who's got a lot of mobility. I just and maybe I'm a bit of a Nazi when it comes to height at the quarterback position, right? I think that Drew Brees being the exception, very few guys, below that 5'9" mark has excelled at the quarterback position in terms of winning a Super Bowl, going all the way. I think trading away a 1st round draft pick for Kyler Murray, you got to go ahead and take on that contract. It also, in my opinion, eliminates you really from pushing maybe next year into what I think is going to be a very rich quarterback class of finding your franchise guy who might have a higher ceiling. I'm out on that. I'm really in on gambling the farm next year on next year's quarterback class. I really am. And if you want to trade this year for a couple of extra picks, so you can eventually get to your guy next year, I'm cool with that. Kyler Murray, to me, you got the contract. Again, you got to go ahead and untrain him. Is this going to be a guy that's going to be, committed to the game, or is he going to focus primarily on Madden when it comes out or Call of Duty? There's just a lot of when you got to start putting in to a guy's contract, hey, we're going to need you to watch tape. You can only play so many video games during the season. That's concerning to me. You're a grown man getting paid millions.
The fact that needs to go into the contract,
is telling. It's just telling, man. So for me, as much as I've enjoyed watching Kyler Murray play from afar, I don't think he has what it takes in New York. I don't think this is where we got to remember we're going toe-to-toe. We want to go toe-to-toe with Josh Allen every in the season. That's who we're trying to get past. The Buffalo Bills. They've got Josh Allen. And for me, I need a guy who's got a ceiling that I can look at and think to myself, we got a chance against Josh Allen. I don't know if Kyler Murray's that guy, especially when you start talking about his lack of commitment to the game. As he is more in tune with, video games, vice the actual NFL game.
Gunny, my question to you then, if you don't want to trade the 7th overall pick for Kyler Murray, my question to you then is, who are you getting at the 7th overall pick, realistically speaking, who has the potential to come in and make as large of an impact as Kyler Murray has? Let's be real. The Jets, Kyler Murray has the potential to come in if they trade for him and go down as one of the best quarterbacks in Jets history. It sounds crazy to think from afar, but that is the truth. Kyler Murray has been a top 10 quarterback throughout the entirety of his career. There hasn't been a season where maybe top 10, top 12. That's probably his floor. His floor is a top 12 quarterback. So an above average quarterback, that is his floor. And his ceiling, when you look at the traits he has, I know the height's a concern. Overall, his traits has the potential to lift him up to a top 3, top 5 guy in this league. So my question to you is, who are you getting at 7 who's going to come in and make a larger impact? Who has the potential, rather, to make a larger impact than Kyler Murray?
If we're talking long term, I think a guy like Ted, bring in a guy like Ted to go ahead on the opposite side of Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, but what's more important, wide receiver or quarterback?
Wide receiver or quarterback. And I say this, right? When you're talking about the quarterback aspect, you look at the New York Jets. And yes, for him to be the best quarterback of all time for the Jets is a very low bar. That's not saying much. We really haven't had much success in that range. But I'm not looking to just be excited about, the potentially of having the greatest quarterback of all time. I want somebody to come in here that I can look at and think to myself like, yo, we've got a chance to win a Super Bowl. I don't get that vibe from Kyler Murray. I just don't. I think to be a guy, a quarterback specifically, a general of the team, it's not about your athletic God-given ability, not about your athletic gifts, right? It's really about your commitment to the game. It's really about your ability to stay focused and lead men. I don't see Kyler Murray being a guy that is a leader of men, if that makes any sense. Granted, very gifted athletically. And yes, he would probably be the best quarterback in Jets history. Again, very low bar. I want a guy that I can look at and think to myself, this guy can go toe-to-toe with Josh Allen because the division goes through him. Until otherwise dethroned, the division belongs to Josh Allen. And you're looking at a guy like Drake May, who actually pisses me off a little bit, but he impressed a little bit towards the back end of the season. Seeing him put together some games, you know what I'm saying, with no real support, I'm a little concerned with better coaching, some more support around him and what he could potentially become. The last thing we need is to be in that range of what the Miami Dolphins are. Hey, we got a quarterback who does pretty good, you know what I'm saying, for the Dolphins, and they're pretty good for their particular their system, but they can't get you nowhere. I think Kyler Murray would fall in that category. As exciting as he would be in terms of for the Jets, for us, because we've been in quarterback purgatory, I just don't see him being a guy that I'm going to look at and be like, yeah, he could definitely take freaking Josh Allen any given quarter. Or if Drake May continues to develop, I have concerns about that. So I would rather take the chance on adding another weapon to this team. And again, I feel much better with the upside of some of the quarterbacks in next year's draft. If we're talking about a future franchise guy that I think you can look at and think, yeah, you could probably go toe to toe with a guy like Josh Allen.
Speaking of trying to find a franchise guy immediately, Gunny, Shedeur Sanders, New York Jets, while Mel Kiper Jr. mocked Shedeur Sanders to the 7th overall pick with the New York Jets in his latest mock draft that came out earlier today. I see your face there, Gunny. I'm right with you. I like Shedeur Sanders. I think he has potential to come in and be a solid quarterback. I don't have a first-round grade on him, let alone a top 7 grade. I have a mid to late second-round grade on Sanders. Here are some of my concerns with him. He's not a crazy athlete. The whole thing, the main point for me, he's not a crazy athlete. He's accurate, but he doesn't have any traits that really jump off the chart for me where I'm like, wow, this guy's going to come in and he has the potential to win a Super Bowl 5 years into his NFL career. That's not who Shedeur Sanders is for me. Shedeur Sanders, I think, is someone you bring in as potentially, somewhat of a field general who you could draft in the second round. He's certainly not a first-round pick for me. He's going to go in the top 5, though, in my opinion, at least. I think it's an absolute joke that Shedeur Sanders is being talked about, coming to the Jets. Talk about the whole motto that Aaron Glenn seems to be following of no celebrity quarterbacks, the Bill Parcells rule. Well, you're getting a celebrity quarterback in Shedeur Sanders. His last name is Sanders. Could you imagine, Gunny, the Jets start 1-6 and Tyrod Taylor's the starter and Shedeur's on the bench and Dion's going on every single, national radio show, sports talk radio, television show saying that, this is a joke. Aaron Glenn's the worst coach in NFL history. He needs to get fired. Who's the other one? Tanner Engstrand. He needs to go. Charles London. They all need to go. It's an absolute joke. So the fact that Shedeur Sanders is being mocked to the Jets at 7 is absolute nonsense for me.
Listen, I think Brian hit it on the nail on the head, right? The best case scenario for me is if somehow, some way Shedeur did drop to number 7, and we can go ahead and trade back for a boatload of picks because someone's desperate enough to look at this kid and think, yeah, you're him. You're going to be the savior of my franchise. I'm with you, man. I don't have a first-round grade on Shedeur Sanders, and for me, it goes deeper than just, what I'm saying? I think he's kind of limited athletically. I think his deep ball is very, very questionable. Again, the level of competition is always going to be a concern for me. Very accurate guy, short to intermediate game, but I don't really look at him as a leader of men. I don't see them having that his mentality to me is very fragile. This is a kid who you look at, yes, granted, you've had some opportunities, you've taken advantage of opportunities. I don't know when things get rough if this is the guy you want behind the steering wheel of your car or your ship or whatever. This is a guy who walked off the field from his team numerous times when they were down in games. Like, his demeanor to me is just, I don't want him on this team. He's not built for New York. He's just not. He's not built for New York, regardless of what, his father's last name is. He's not Dion. He's not Deion Sanders. I hope one or two things happen. And Brian, I'm going to go ahead and just pretty much copy and paste what you just said. Either he falls.
Brian's contributing in the private chat, by the way, so I'm sure he's backstage. So the ones in the public chat might be able to not to see that. So Gunny, if you could echo what you're just about to mention.
I'll echo what we're seeing. So Brian's backstage, and we're on the same page here. So Brian's talking about, I hope he falls to the Jets, and we can trade that pick for more picks. 100%. That would be ideal. Somehow he falls. Someone's desperate enough. They come up. They can get their guy, and we can go ahead and trade back. Hopefully, acquire a couple of picks for next year that we can go ahead and use to get our guy. Or He says, I hope 3 QBs are taken before the Jets are on the clock at 7. Reason being, to push those premium players down to us. 100%. If you can go ahead and get those 3 guys off the freaking docket and they're gone, that means that 2, maybe 3 guys, legitimate freaking top 5 guys, fell down to the New York Jets. And that's a win for us too in regards to building this roster up and getting it, in my opinion, ready for our franchise guy next year. I'm 100% prepared for this season to suck. I know a lot of Jets fans don't want that. I think we can win games with Tyrod Taylor. I really do. But for me, I'm 100% prepared for this season to suck, because if you don't have the quarterback, you
can't win.
You can't win. This is the league that we're in. And I don't know if we don't have a franchise guy on the roster right now. Tyrod might be able to get us some wins. Maybe the defense, plays up to par. Special teams decides to show up. We make a surprise 9-10 game season, maybe sneak into a wild card. I think that is feasible. But I'm also prepared to win 5 games this year, prepared to win 4 games this year. And I think it sucks to say this as a Jets fan. I'm prepared for both, because I know that one means we're going to get our franchise guy, most likely, of some of the top quarterbacks coming out. And the other option is we finally get this freaking monkey off our back that is this 14-year playoff drought. It's a win-win for Jets fans, in my opinion, either way. And again, I'd rather get the picks and get another stable or another freaking foundation piece in this draft to help us get the quarterback next year, for us to get that sustained success that they keep talking about when it comes to freaking Glenn and Mougey.
Yeah, Gunny, a lot to unpack there. Here's my other thing with Shedeur Sanders. I don't know if you know this. There was the whole thing at Colorado that Dion was intentionally telling him, from a statistic standpoint, to just he holds on to the ball for a century. Dion apparently was telling him to just hold on to the ball and eat sacks instead of throwing it away and hurting your completion percentage, hurting your overall QBR, which is also a massive red flag for me. And the other thing that you mentioned about potentially, you need a franchise quarterback to win. I agree 1,000%. It goes back to my original point of looking at the 4 teams that were, looking to punch their ticket to New Orleans this past season, and the Eagles, the Commanders, the Bills, and the Chiefs. All 4 of those teams have franchise guys and Jalen Hurts, and it's looking like Jaden Daniels for Washington, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. You're able to go 9-8. You're able to, Sam Darnold you're able to win 14 games when you're not a franchise guy and you're just somewhat of a bridge option. He's shown you're able to do that. You're able to have a successful winning season in the NFL with a bridge guy. But when it comes to the playoffs, when it comes to trying to win a Super Bowl, which is the ultimate goal for every single NFL franchise, you need a franchise quarterback to win. And it's been evident over the past 4 seasons. So this Jets team isn't going to the Super Bowl this season. They're a lot more than a quarterback away for the first time in 4 years, it feels like. So we have that. We're done with that. You have a lot of holes to fill. I think you need to draft a starter at 7. And that's not Shedeur Sanders. That's going a defensive route or an offensive route. Obviously, 2 main sides of the ball, you're not going to draft a special teamer, but you know what I mean? No quarterback overall there, whether it's looking to add, look to bolster your defense, whether it's trying to, even if you want to reach a little and try to, draft that cornerback to play opposite Sauce Gardner right away, a Jahad Barron, a Will Johnson at pick 7. I would even be okay with safety. I know it's not particularly viewed as a premium position, but the Jets are probably going to be looking for 3 to 4 new safeties this offseason. You might as well pick up one or 2 throughout the draft. I've been big on that, Gunny. Even towards the end of the season, I'm like, you need 4 safeties. You need 4 safeties entering next season. You can't roll with this group. I've heard Tigo come on here with me and say Quantez Stiggers and JBC could transition to safety. I don't even think they're rosterable guys, in my opinion, at the main position. Meanwhile, we're talking about transitioning them over to safety and expecting them to come in and take a starter load. I just don't think it makes sense. Gunny, I know you gotta go shortly, but guys, I'll stay on here, answer the rest of your questions, take your calls after we let Gunny go here in a few minutes. Gunny, another insider, friend of the show, Antoine Staley, continues to link Jackson Dart to the Jets, says it makes a lot of sense. They want to stick and pick at 7, trade back into the first round to get him. You know my thoughts on Dart, Gunny. 4th round grade for me, quarterback 5 in this year's draft. Pressure bears down. He panics. That's where his mechanics go to waste. Overall, his lower body is just an absolute joke. Jackson Dart is certainly not a top 10 pick, and I don't even think is a day 1 or 2 pick.
Yeah, no, Jackson Dart to me is in the top 10 pick. I don't think he's a first round pick. Like I said before, I'd be okay with going after him in the 2nd if you want to gamble on his upside. But I definitely see where you're coming from in terms of NFL pressure is different from what he's experienced right now in the SEC. He's strung along some pretty good tape, and I think that the sparks that we've seen, I think, is why he's getting so much love right now. But then I think it was you that said something that's very, very like relatable, is that Zach Wilson has sparks too, right? He had a lot of flashes as well, right? And we know what that kind of felt like. I'm not saying that Dart is on the trajectory of
Yeah,
Zach
it's just
Wilson,
unfair to. I think
but
but it's unfair to say right away.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. But I think it is also unfair for us to start looking at this dude in the flashes and think, oh yeah, he's definitely a first round or a top 10 pick in the NFL. Now, I think he's going to go in the first round. I think a team is going to go ahead and go for him maybe in the late first. But I'm with you, man. Again, if you go with a guy like Jackson Dart, you'd have to be, I think, closer to a complete roster than we currently are. He's going to need to sit for a little while, learn the game, and you can only hope that by sitting and learning, he's able to evolve into a franchise guy. I just think at this point, man, it just makes more sense to go ahead and literally build the foundation of this team, man. Start infusing the culture you're trying to create with the kind of players who are going to go ahead and help create that. And then next year you go for your franchise guy, man. Again, quarterback is the most difficult position to figure out in all of sports. It's complicated. It's at this less than a 25% success hit rate. But I do know this: when you find a winner, they're usually in the first round. And if we're telling you, like, if most people are telling you this is a weak draft class for quarterbacks, and the only reason some of the top guys are even going to go is because there's really not many other options, I think you wait for, a quarterback class like next season or next year that's going to have 4 to 5 guys who could really potentially go in the top 10. You know what I'm saying? If they have good seasons this coming year. So I'm out on Dart as well as a guy. I would understand if they took a chance in the second or the third, but I don't think he's going to be there. I know you said fourth for you is your comfort zone. But I think you gamble on some of his traits, but I don't see a scenario in which he's the guy at 7. I really don't think they're just going quarterback this draft. I really don't. I don't think they're going to draft a guy, at least with the first round pick. I don't think that first rounder is going to be quarterback. I think it's going to go receiver, maybe corner. And I see even offensive line more feasible than, I don't think, maybe edge. Like I see it going any one of those routes before I see it going quarterback. And I'm okay with that. Again, none of the quarterbacks in this draft class to me scream first round. Gotta have them, guys. And I know Cam Ward is really like high on some people's freaking list. I'm not about that. I think me and Brian must be brothers or something because we're on the same page. I think Brian, Hunter, Johnson, Campbell, McMillan, all solid picks. You know what I'm saying? If they fall there, my baby girl. But love you too. I just don't see a scenario in which I don't think Hunter falls to us. I think Hunter will be gone.
Yeah,
I don't see Carter also falling to us.
Yeah,
I wish.
They're both going to go in the top 3 in my opinion.
Yeah,
for sure. Again, where I am on Dart is I just don't think he's an NFL caliber quarterback. And talks of him being a first, second, or even third round pick for me are just wild. You also mentioned this team not drafting a quarterback, let alone at 7. I agree 1,000%. It's a massive risk for this regime, Gunny, because you look and you draft someone this year. That's 3 years down the drain, no matter what. Because year 1, they're probably going to sit for a few weeks at least. Year 2, you got to make something, and you have a 3-year plan when you draft a quarterback, especially in round 1. And there's a chance if the Jets, go 3-14 this year, which I hope is not the case, and they win 4 games in 2026. Aaron Glenn and Darren Mougey are on the hot seat entering year 3, so that's potentially their entire regime just spent on trying to reach on a quarterback. In my opinion, like Jackson Dart, I appreciate you all tuning in. Smash the like, subscribe to the channel. Gunny Gumby, Connor Long here with you on a Tuesday edition of NY Flight Jets Talk. Like I said, smash the like, subscribe, keep the questions coming. We'll get to those. Call into the show. Pin comment at the top of the chat. 37 of you guys here on YouTube, 22 likes. So hit the like button, guys. Completely free. Helps us grow significantly. Gunny, I know you've been referring to a lot of Brian's comments in the private chat, but I know you have a show at 9 p.m. Are you okay do you have enough time if we bring Brian up here on the show?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Brian Glick joining us here on the program. Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Connor. Gunny, I am so happy I tuned into this show. I'm feeling the love on your takes.
Hey, Brian, I feel like you and I are like brothers from another mother or something, dog. Like you started talking and I'm like, yes, we're on the same wavelength in the background.
I consume a lot of Jets talk, and from a draft perspective, we're certainly not a young quarterback away from competing.
No, for sure.
We've got a dozen or so holes that we got to fill with a deep safety and a defensive tackle class. I don't even think Mason Graham at 7. I hope he's there at 7 and someone else wants to give us a haul, because I would not mind moving back. I see value in later in the first round. I'd love to pick up more opportunities to reload the roster. I don't think we're going to suck. I saw 4 games in person last year. I saw a lot of crappy football. I really did.
Horrible coaching.
I don't think we're a kicker away. I don't think we have one piece of the problem that we're like, that's it. So I think we've got to make our roster more robust. It certainly lacks depth at every position but running back. Every position. You can't point to a position.
In this year's draft, I think the running back class is actually really strong, in my opinion.
So deep. Yeah,
I agree. Deep. I mean, on our team. Because running back is so deep, that doesn't help us. Yeah. I see other people, hey, let them reload their running back room. Fine. That helps us, right? 2 defensive tackles, 2 tight ends, 2 safeties. There's 2 at a lot of positions.
A wide receiver.
Right?
A wide receiver. And Brian and Gunny, I was watching tape on the running backs the other day, and I was thinking to myself, as Quinshon Judkins, by the way, from Ohio State, is just a freaking specimen. I have him as my RB2 in this year's class, actually, ahead of Sampson, ahead of Caleb Johnson, ahead of Omarion Hampton. I'm that high on Quinshon Judkins from Ohio State. And there's names, I'll pull up the list of running backs I have. Ashton Jeanty, 5'9", 215 pounds, who's just going to be an absolute baller when he gets into the league. Omarion Hampton, another name I'm really high on. Judkins, Scattaboo, Caleb Johnson, Dylan Sampson, Trayvon Henderson, RJ Harvey, Devin Neal, Damian Martinez, DJ Giddens, Trevor Etienne, the brother of Tyler, whatever his name is at the NFL.
So tall, I think a fly lands on him and he breaks. So I love that there's all these dynamic young running backs that are there. Some are scat backs, some are third down backs. Great. Let every other team feast on it.
Go get them.
Let that push the value down to us. I saw Joe D in his strategy about moving up, taking less swings at higher caliber players, putting quality starters in, but that didn't build our depth. We've had depth issues at the offensive line, and I kind of made a joke on the Trent Dilfer idea. We get a quarterback that can operate a run first offense. Get us a right tackle in round 1. Run that ball. Keep the defense off the page. Make them stop us. We got good enough players right now on our defense where I think we can still make a game out of it. A low scoring game, sure. Yeah, will we get blown out every now and then? Possibly. I'll take that. I want to see first downs. This year, I'm looking for no mistakes and first downs. I want to see sustained drives, even if in the red zone we kick a field goal. I want to see those 6-minute drives. I miss that. That is what's going to make our defense better and this team more fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure. Brian and Gunny, one thing here, what I was hinting at with saying how deep this running back class is here, Brian, and then we'll go to Gunny. I was thinking in the back of my head, Breece Hall's someone I really, really like. You see, I'm wearing the Breece jersey right now. I just don't think he's going to get a second contract with this team. And just to the point, I like Braylon Allen. I like Isaiah Davis. This class is so deep. A team calls me a 3 and a 5 for Breece Hall. Sign me up right away. I'm shipping Breece Hall to whatever team that is, just because I think they have so much depth in the running back room right now. Plus, you can add a guy like a Damian Martinez, someone I'm really, really high on from Miami in one of the later rounds. An RJ Harvey, a Devin Neal, someone of that nature. I would be okay giving up Breece if that means we can recoup some draft capital here and we rely more on Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis, like you said, Brian, while signing a Justin Fields in free agency and transitioning over to a more run-heavy offensive scheme.
Hit it, Gunny. I'll go after you.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to humbly disagree in this aspect, right? I understand the depth of running back is there, but I'm kind of with Brian on this one, man. Let other individuals like pile up to get ahead and scoop up those running backs and let quality players fall down the board. I think a guy like Breece Hall, man, there's not many Christian McCaffreys in the NFL, right? Like there's not many freaking Adrian Petersons of our era. Like there are guys you look at and they were game changers at the running back position. Now, Breece Hall hasn't really had the ability to go ahead and show that, but this is still a guy who was second last year in all-purpose yards in the NFL behind Tyreek Hill, right? Like this isn't a guy that, is a one-show guy where he's just a running back. He's a weapon. He's a legitimate weapon. And I like what Breece Hall can do, and if we would actually utilize Brees Hall. I mean, the guy didn't get over 20 carries this entire season. Granted, our offensive scheme was a joke. Aaron Rodgers was doing his own thing. Like, Brees Hall, I think this year again was underutilized. I think he's been underutilized quite a bit actually since coming onto the team, but he still got us 1,500 plus all-purpose yards last year, coming off of a torn ACL, mind you. So now a year removed from it, I think goes a long way. So for me, I'm on the realm of you keep him on because it's not going to cost much to re-sign Brees Hall. Running backs don't get paid anymore in the NFL, which is one thing that I love about the league now. Back in the day, he would have cost us an arm and a leg. Brees Hall might wind up costing us, $10 million a year if we decide to re-sign him and he actually shows his potential. But the benefit you'll have him behind a rookie quarterback next year could go a long way of making that guy's job a lot easier, right? The tight ends we bring into this, hopefully into the team this year, they need to be able to block and be able to run routes. And again, makes the quarterback job next year very easy. I look at the lack of weapons we have on offense. I think Brees Hall is legitimately a weapon. And then you've got Garrett Wilson. I like the depth in our running back room. I think it is a strength on our team, but I definitely believe that Brees Hall leads that pack. And I would rather keep him here to be a part of this turnover. Now, he's not going to get a second contract or a third contract from us, right? Put him a 3-year contract after this, and I think at that point you've kind of went through the life cycle of a running back. But I think he's worth the $8 to $10 million you'll wind up paying him when you put him in an offense that utilizes his skill set. You give him a legitimate creative offensive coordinator. The offensive line has only gotten better. I think you're going to see Brees Hall be in that Christian McCaffrey conversation, and we've seen what he's done for the 49ers and even with the Panthers whenever he's with them as well. So I think Brees Hall has that ability at the running back position for us.
Brian, one thing here quickly before I let you go. Gunny, I know you got a show in like 19 minutes. You got to run?
Yeah, I got a couple minutes. All
right, appreciate it. Brian, unleash.
All right. I'm wearing my Stanford. I watch McCaffrey play a ton. I live right around the corner. My wife works there. Oh. Dude's unbelievable. Brees for an extra year costs us about $12 million on a tag or something like that. So to me, the drop off between Brees and getting another young back in, which I think a lot of team roster constructs go around, like focus on these days, I think is a healthy construct. Don't pay that running back, reload, draft a running back every other year. I'm okay with that. Now, I love Brees Hall and I have his jersey and I love the dude. I have gone on record and got torn apart by saying if someone offered me a high third and another pick in the 4th or 5th for him, I would be okay with making that move. However, it's not because I don't think he's amazing. I think he's amazing. I think he serves the Jets well, keeping him on the roster. I think a run-first offensive attack is the way to go. I also think that having not just a right tackle, but a swing tackle that you could put in a 6-man offensive line and run that ball, and we're running it, and you can't stop us. I'm looking forward to that. Give me 2 bullies that we can put out there. I don't care if it's right tackle Campbell, and then we go and get the biggest tight end available, or another tackle, or a guard. We don't know what's going to happen with Simpson in a year. I hope AVT stays healthy and that they extend the mid-year. Those are all things in my brain that I would do. I'd like to see the Jets just run through people. Let them stack the box and let's run through the stacked box. Let's assert our dominance there. And other things will happen as a result of it. So I'm supportive if they want to keep him. I love the dude. I'm supportive if they get a haul and we can get, no pun intended, 2 picks for them that we can reload some of these areas of need. The Jets just have too many little spots of need, deep class in the areas where we have need. So just talking about Tet McMillan, we get him in at 7.
Oh my
That's
God,
great. Can our new quarterback get the ball?
Number 1 player for me.
I don't know. I'm looking at Nick Nash from San Jose State.
His numbers are crazy.
Watching him in person is even better. Dude is a baller. You see Lad McConkey destroying it. Like Nick Nash is going to make somebody's fantasy team next year. I know that's going to happen. You'll see it in some league you're in. So if you play fantasy, get Nick Nash.
The thing is, Nick Brian, Nash. I'll say this about Nick Nash.
Say that one.
He's 6'3", 195 pounds. 6'3", 195 pounds. There are so many receivers who I like in this year's class, but I ignore at times because of their weight. I can't ignore Nick Nash really just because his numbers are through the roof. He was top 3 in every single main metric for a wide receiver this past season. But for example, Tez Johnson, 5'9", 165 pounds. He might have had a great week down in Mobile. He might have had a great season overall. I cannot roster an 165-pound wide receiver at the NFL level. And he hasn't even weighed in at the combine. So 165 on the Oregon website is probably
Might be generous.
158, 160 at best. So the fact that you're rostering someone who's below 175 pounds, people are talking about using a day 2 draft pick on him. I think that's asinine.
I just like how the kid separates. But like you're right, he's one hit away from being his separation
dying. I'm not even joking. Getting killed.
He could get murdered out there. That is true. He could get murdered out there.
Yeah.
It works when you've got AJ Brown out there on the other side and Dallas Goedert, and you've got a slim reaper, skinny dude who knows how to run routes, get open. Sure, if he's the missing piece and that's the body type of our missing piece, but we're far from that. We don't have a 50-50 ball guy. We don't have a speedster taking the top off. I'm hopeful on Malachi Corley. Optimistic. I'm a very positive Jets fan. I think these guys develop under the right coaching staff. I'd really like to see Jefferson develop him, and even in some hybrid roles. I was expecting some punt return. I was expecting some more gadget plays from him. Mm-hmm. Whatever it was that was holding him back, I hope an off season where he's not training for a combine and he can get his football skills. When I saw him out in Arizona this year, he didn't even make eye contact with me. Like walking by me 5 feet away, he was dialed in doing something. And I was like, this is his game, but it wasn't his game. I don't even think I saw him on the field. So we got some depth pieces, but I haven't seen him develop. So it's not depth yet.
Got any thoughts?
Yeah, I also am a Malachi Corley fan. I blame a lot of his lack of utilization on the coaching staff and whatever offense they're trying to run. Aaron Rodgers wants you to be here where you're supposed to be here. The complexities of him being able to go ahead and call audibles. I put that on the team around him. And again, maybe it's the naive aspect of me being a Jets fan. I too, Brian, look at things in the most positive of lights when it comes to this team. I can't help it. But I think Malachi Corley he could still be the freaking Yak King. He could still be that dude, utilizing him the right way. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he looks like in this offense that they're trying to go ahead and create. And he should be a focal point of it. Again, if he can play wide receiver at the NFL level, we still don't know. We know at the collegiate level, he was dominant. He was a force. He's got the skill sets in terms of how it should be translatable to the NFL. Use the kid. So I'm looking forward to what Malachi Corley can do, and I do believe he's going to be a great number 3. He could be maybe an upside number 2 if he's properly coached up. So I am also a fan of Malachi Corley and what he brings to the table. But again, I still want a guy like Ted on the other side of Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, Brian, we appreciate the call as always. I know Gunny's got to go, so you could stay backstage for a little while. We'll say our farewells to Gunny, and then we'll go right back to you. That sound good?
Nice meeting you, Brian.
Pleasure.
Appreciate you, Brian. We'll go back to Brian in a little while, but we got to say goodbye to our guy, Gunny. 45 minutes, Gunny, we got you here for on this Tuesday evening. Appreciate you hopping on with me as always. I know you're on 9 p.m. every Tuesday for the Hangout right after us. So you got the Jets content special, whether it's it's us on here until 8:30, 8:40 every night. The Talking Jets guys are on. They're on 8 to 10 every Tuesday. I think Let's Talk Jets is still on with Jets Central. So I'm gonna stay on here, guys, a little longer, answer all your questions, take all your calls, but we gotta let Gunny go. Gunny, appreciate you as always. Let everyone know.
You, man. You guys can find me on Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram at New York Jets Situation Report. Again, on Tuesday nights, we do the Hangout. Thursday nights, I'm hanging out with Green Bean on a Thursday Thick of It. And you'll always see me tweeting on Twitter. So you can find me anywhere there.
Ladies and gentlemen, Gunny freaking Gunby checking in here on the show in his weekly spot. Hit him a follow, X, TikTok. Instagram, YouTube, one of the best Jets content creators on the internet. Joining us here in his weekly spot on the show. Smash the like. Make sure you are subscribed, completely free. Helps us grow significantly. Haven't had any memberships or super chats after what was a crazy night last night. So, hey, if you want to take it into our raffle, you want to add to your total raffle tickets, gift a membership. Every $2.99 super chat or every gifted membership will get you a ticket into our membership raffle. Get in on that if you haven't already. Last chance to get in is tomorrow, and then we will be drawing the winner on the 28th. So I appreciate all your support here on the program. As always, get to your questions. If you want to call into the show, you can do so with the pinned comment at the top of the chat. Let's go back to our guy, Brian, who will resume his phone call with us here on the show. Brian, resume what you were saying before we had to say goodbye to Gunny.
You got it. Hey, I am really thankful, Connor. Not only do I love the content that you bring
I appreciate
on my favorite team, I love the guests that you're introducing me to. I don't know
Thank
where
you.
I've been living under a rock that I don't know all these folks, but I'm slightly addicted to consuming more Jets content. With every new fix of Jets content, I look for more. So I appreciate you.
Of course,
right,
Brian,
so
I appreciate you.
Here's my thought, right? So roster construction. Doesn't matter we bring in one of these young quarterbacks or we, a retread. I've been hating on Jameis Winston for too many years. I realize that it's a possibility that I could see him in a Jets jersey. We're going to need another vet in the room. I am accepting of whoever they bring in that we just limit the turnovers. I think with a strong run game and a rebuilt tough defense. And I think that's what Glenn is going to do. I think his chip on his shoulder, slightly undersized guy, I have a feeling he wants to bully people. So you get that feeling that that's how he wants to run this defense and offense. He wants to run it down your throat.
Same with Steve Wilkes, 1000%. I think that a full send aggressive type scheme is going to be really interesting when we see it all unfold on the defensive side of the ball, 1000%. You mentioned Ted McMillan trying to get your 50-50 guy. The numbers show he's not even a 50 guy. It's a 60-40 type guy. His contested catch rate was 60% last year. I think he had 18 total contested catches made last season. So I'm all on board with Ted McMillan at 7, kind of going back to your draft take. Let me go back in the private chat, see the names you mentioned. Carter Hunter, I would love both those guys, but they're probably not going to be there. Johnson, I like Will Johnson in a trade back scenario. I'm just not too big on taking corner 2 with the 7th overall pick, especially someone who past few years he's been riddled with injuries. The toe injury is somewhat of a concern for me. Campbell is the only one I strongly disagree with there. I think he's going to have to transition to guard at the next level. That big upright stance, I don't think that's going to be feasible. I don't think he's able to pull that off at the next level. So I'm not big on drafting really any offensive lineman unless it's trading late in the first round. And, the Colston Lovelands of the world are off the board and you're looking at Josh Connerly from Oregon. What's your thought process on Will Campbell? I'm not too big on him.
Yeah, I read the reports. I see the physical issue concerns. Now, here's what I'd say. Do you want to re-sign AVT?
I do. Yeah.
So
the thing with AVT is I'm mixed on sliding him out to guard or putting him at tackle because I like him at guard. I think he has the potential to be an all-pro at guard. Just the way he's played. The thing is, if you have the opportunity to add a Kevin Zeitler in free agency, who's just an absolute mauler in the trenches in the run game, then that's going to convince me to slide AVT out to right tackle, plug Zeitler in at right guard, and then boom, you have all 5 pieces of your offensive line in place, which this team hasn't had in, over 10 plus years, which is crazy to think. So I would be on board if it was something like that, just because I want someone bigger who's just gonna, beat up the entire defensive line in the run game. That's probably the only scenario where I would be willing to slide AVT out to tackle. But answer to that question, yes, I want to re-sign AVT because when he's healthy, he's an all-pro.
Agreed. So I'm right there with you on both of those scenarios. And in both of those scenarios, I can see bringing Campbell in and saying, hey, you're our right tackle because we need a right tackle this year in the first scenario where we keep AVT at guard. All right. Now we have a guy on a rookie deal for 4 more years that we can slide over to John Simpson's plot when he goes in a year.
Is that worth the 7th overall pick, though, Brian? This team has so many holes. Like last year, they had the luxury of adding a depth piece. This team has so many holes now it's like you need to draft a starter. I don't think it's, for example, this team was they had the roster was one of, if not the strongest in the NFL as they entered the draft last season. Not to mention they traded for freaking Devontae Adams as well 6 weeks into the season. They had the opportunity to try to plan for the future, getting that depth piece in Olu Fashanu, which I think was the right move at the time. This team does not have the luxury of doing that. Other than running back, like you mentioned, Brian, there's not one position I'm like the Jets don't need depth or not even depth, help there. Quarterback, yes. Running back, no. Wide receiver, yes. Offensive line's the one. So, yeah, you check that off the list as well. So, you're not going to get a starter there pretty much. I just don't think it's worth it. Even I would rather sign like Dredrick Wills from the Browns, who was a former first-round pick for $5 million at that point. That's why I just think overall moving on from Morgan Moses was an awful move. You're just creating an unnecessary hole when you could have paid the guy $4 million next season. Anyways, defensive line, you need a defensive tackle. You need one more edge guy. How is Jermaine going to, look the first few weeks into the season coming off the Achilles? Linebacker, there's a chance the Jets are either really thin at linebacker or really strong. Secondary, you need a lot of safeties. You need a lot of cornerbacks. Like, Brian, this team has so many holes. I don't think you could draft a depth piece.
Okay, now I'm going to say a name. Quentin Nelson, 6th overall, was our draft pick. We gave it to the Colts, and we took Sam. And right now, I would love that dude on our line. I'd love Penei Sewell on our line. There's a lot of guys that I'd love to beef up our line. And Campbell at right tackle for a year with the option to slide him in should we be able to pick up a free agent tackle the following year or draft a tackle. Now we've got young, under control, full line. That, to me, is the ideal scenario on the offense and defensive line. We're a defensive tackle, an edge rusher. There's a lot on this line that we need to invest in. That's why I am comfortable with a trade back scenario. If Shedeur falls to us, I think that's what we jump on and we say, what a gift. Let somebody come up and grab him. It's not for us.
Who's coming up for him, though, is my question. Like, you have to find someone. I don't think anyone's coming up for Shedeur if he falls that deep. I don't.
I don't know.
Who's going to come up for him?
I mean, there are Jets fans that are clamoring at the idea of taking Dart at 7.
No,
so
that's a joke. That's a joke.
I agree. I don't see a quarterback for us in the draft unless it's a 6th round flyer on somebody with some arm upside. And I'm comfortable with no quarterback. Reload all positions of need.
Agreed.
And you won't get them all, even through free agency. We don't have enough cap room for that. We got to start paying our players. Eccles, Sherwood, sign them. I don't care what it takes. Sign those guys. We develop them, keep them. I really hope the current GM coach sees that. We need to start paying our players.
Here's one thing I could see potentially, Brian. Let's say the two teams, they have the number 1 and number 2 overall pick, the Titans and the Browns. Both need quarterbacks, but both might not take a quarterback with their pick. Titans, they take Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter number 1. They still aren't uncomfortable. They want to, really give a haul to get back in like kind of what the Texans did a few years ago with Will Anderson and the I'm blanking on his name, the other guy they drafted there as well in that first round alongside Will Anderson. Let me see.
It was CJ Stroud.
CJ Stroud, that's who it was. CJ Stroud and Will Anderson. Draft Stroud number 2, trade back up to number 4 to get Will Anderson, and look what that's done for them over the past few seasons. So Stroud and Anderson, maybe the Titans could do that. I think the team that makes most sense, though, if Shedeur somehow falls to 7, which I don't think will happen, especially with the Raiders being ahead. But let's say the Browns, they trade Myles Garrett, get a boatload of picks. They draft Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter at number 2. Boom, slide back up to use that capital they have, come up to pick 7 with the Jets. The Jets get a haul. And honestly, I know it sounds crazy, Brian, but I'm okay. The Jets pick up 2 first-round picks and another day 3 pick. I'm okay sliding back into the second round. I am. I'm not completely opposed to it.
Well, for our other pros that come on here and say, I'm expecting this year to suck, isn't the first time I've heard an industry expert say that. So the fact that the Jets could amass picks for use to rebuild this roster is not a crazy strategy. It makes a lot of sense. But I will say, I don't think Shedeur makes it past the Giants. And I think that's a turning point for this draft. Is what happens, in the 3 to 6 range ahead of us. And I hope more than 2 quarterbacks go, before
Yeah.
us. I hope we're looking at. Gosh, am I really that blurry? I got to get some better lighting.
No, you're good. You're good.
Cool. I really hope that some of these skill position players that I mentioned in the chat, I really hope they fall to us. We could use a blue chip player. There's plenty of spots where we can use a stud for 5 years plus. And when you're drafting number 7, you're looking for a second or third contract kind of guy. So to me, defensive tackle, great if Graham is there and they want to go for it. I'm supportive. However, since D tackle is so deep, I could see them saying, look, we can get a starter in round 2, or we can trade back in round 1 and still get a good guy. There's other edge rushers. And I agree with you. We don't know what Jermaine is going to come back and be day 1. We've seen others, super talented athletes, athletic freaks, come back and play great. And we've seen them not come back and play great until later in the season or a year removed. I'm hoping Brees is that guy.
Brian, appreciate the call as always. Appreciate all your support. You got any final thoughts?
See you on the next show. Go
Brian,
Jets.
you're the best. Appreciate all your support. Great call. As always, great insight from the draft free agency, how the Jets can build their roster. Appreciate you tuning in. Smash the like. Make sure you hit subscribe. We'll continue to take your calls. Call into the show. Pin comment at the top of the chat. We have a lot of questions to rapid fire through now, though, before we get back to the phone lines. Dicker the Kicker in the building. Thoughts on Sander possibly falling to 7? Brian and I just covered that. If he's there, you do everything you can, trade back or get a haul, or just flat out avoid him, in my opinion. Greg, why no update on Jordan Travis? Not a word. Greg, I will say this. I spoke to an unnamed beat reporter about a week or two ago off air. They told me he spoke to some people in the building, and apparently Travis is so far behind from a rehab standpoint. He was getting so frustrated during the season, he just stopped showing up to the facility at times, and it's looking like there's a chance he might not even be ready for the start of the season. So it goes back to my original point. You can't bake on anything from Travis. Tom in the building. I'll take Sanders over Fields. At least he can throw. You're going to take the headache that is Deion Sanders coming, the luggage that Shitter is going to bring to the New York Jets, all those distractions, and potentially it's a huge risk for Aaron Glenn and Darren Mougey in the sense of they take Shitter Sanders, like I spoke about with Gunny. Take Shadur Sanders. That's 3 years of the regime basically off the table, and you win 4 games the first 2 seasons, or 4 games or worse, really 5, 6. If you don't have a winning season the first 2 seasons, there's a chance you're on the hot seat entering year 3. So I don't think they're going to risk it. Caden, how would you feel if the Jets get Keenan Allen a free agency on a 1 year, $12 million? I wouldn't mind it. He's a veteran who, again, would only be $12 million for 1 year. He's basically a pro bowler throughout his entire career. He's been someone who's able to get up, get those jump balls, someone who you could plug in on the outside to, although Alan Lazard didn't do much, someone's going to need to replace that role of being that 6'4" or even taller type guy who's able to go up and get those jump balls. I really like Darius Slayton, though. On somewhat of a cheaper contract, someone who's been pretty much quarterback proof, has a what was I going to say? He has a rapport with Tyrod Taylor from when he was with the Giants. Like I said, he's been quarterback proof and he's played with a bunch of different quarterbacks for sure. Let's see. Jimmy says, I don't agree with you, Connor, on those players not being rosterable. I think you're referring to Quantes, Stiggers, and JBC here. I didn't say not rosterable at their current position. I said if I did say that, I didn't mean to say that. I meant we don't know if they're rosterable at the safety position. That's what I meant. That's what I meant there, Jimmy. Luppy in the building. Hey, Connor, I would be fine with a QB room of Winston, Tyrod, and Travis for this year, focused on building the team. I wouldn't hate that. Preferably, it would be something like, Justin Fields or Kyle McCord or Will Howard and plus Tyrod and Travis. But I wouldn't be opposed to that. I mean, I think the win total, the bar there is lower than bringing in Justin Fields, but I wouldn't hate it. The options aren't all that attractive. Jack Talks Jets, our guy in the building, says the thing about Tyrod is that I like him as a football player a lot, actually. He's smart, he knows the game, and can play competitively when healthy, but his health is the main issue there. Agree 1,000%. That's what that's pretty much what I've been saying, the fact that I want him to be the day one starter, but you need some backup plan behind him for when he eventually goes down. He's smart, he's mobile, he doesn't turn the ball over often. He's everything you look for in a bridge quarterback, but again, health is the main scare. Sharon, draft Warren, he's the next Gronk. Hey, depending on who's the board, depending who's on the board when the Jets are on the clock, I wouldn't be opposed to a Tyler Warren pick. 6'6", 260 pounds, yak machine, could fit great in this offensive scheme. We're talking about, overall tight end being a massive position in need. Wouldn't hate it. Wouldn't hate it at all. Groove, if Kyler McCord there in the round 3 for the Jets, grab him. You said Tyler McCord. I think you're referring to Kyle McCord. Grab him. It depends on who's on the board. I like Kyle. I have a day 2 grade on him. I wouldn't take him personally though until rounds 4 through 7, just because I think prioritizing the positions of need into your defensive line, safety, wide receiver is more important before you look to take a flyer on a quarterback. David, Rick Spielman had a history of trading down with the Vikings. It'll be interesting to see how much influence he has with the Jets' new regime. Well, David, if you missed it, go back and watch our episode with Ryan Wilson, his great friend and former podcast partner of 2 years. We spoke to him after Rick took the Jets job. He was pretty vocal on he's not making any decisions, Rick. He's basically just going to be a sounding board and offer up his insight for Aaron Glenn and Darren Mougey. So that's where he is. Jack Tuck's Jets, what do we do with Xavier Gibson? Next year, I don't even think he's on the roster. I don't think he's a rosterable player. If he is, it's as a punt returner type guy. But at that point, I'd rather just give Malachi Corley the opportunity, not pay him the $2 million or whatever he's due to make next year, and simply move on. I've besides the iconic, obviously 9/11 punt return, for the touchdown to win the game. Xavier Gibson's done nothing. He's done nothing as a receiver, and he's been below average as a returner. So I'm for moving on from Gibson. Johnny Boy in the building, enjoying the content that Connor Long brings. Make sure to vote for Johnny Boy 2025. Johnny, appreciate your support as always, my friend. I picked you to win it in my bracket for the Asmaniac Madness, and I sure do hope you will win. So everyone vote for Johnny in the Asmaniac Madness poll, which I think starts up March 1st or something around there. I appreciate you all tuning in. Smash the like, subscribe, keep the questions coming in. We'll get to those. Call into the show with the pinned comment at the back of at the top of the chat. Let's go back to the phone line. Someone who was active in the chat who, stay tuned, might have some weekly content upcoming with wink wink. Jack Talks Jets.
What's going on, Connor?
Jack, how you doing?
Good. How are you? First, I want to tell you that I am now a member of your channel. I just joined your membership.
Let me catch that. There we go, Jack. Thank you so much, my man. I appreciate it. Sorry, I missed that. There we go.
Gotta pay back.
Appreciate you, Jack. That's a raffle ticket for you, my man. Appreciate you.
Thank you. I also have a question for you, right? Or some sort of comment, I should say.
Okay.
I feel like Jackson Dart. I know you've had your doubts on Dart. I know you're not pro Dart at all. You're not pro Dart at all, really, right?
Mm-hmm. No, not at all. Not in the first 3 rounds, at least.
Right.
Yeah.
So for me, I feel like after watching some of his highlights, and I know he has some relations with this guy, right? But Dart concerns me a lot because he looks and reminds me of Zach Wilson, and I believe they did go to the same high school.
They did. Yeah.
So I feel like his play style very similar to Wilson's. I feel like he's he has good, how do I say it? Good pocket presence when he absolutely needs to, but I feel like he can sometimes fall under pressure and slip up when things get tight. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get what you're saying in the sense that when pressure bears down, he tends to struggle like Zach Wilson. He's shown flashes of making these big, insane plays that obviously are never going to translate into the next level. Both were number 2. The lower mechanics are terrible. Both, we're known to have somewhat like aura, whatever it is, coming out of college. And Zach Wilson obviously got 3 years as a starter in this league, and that's why I said if you draft a quarterback like Jackson Dart in the first round, Aaron Glenn and Darren Mougey are going to have to make something, a plan out of him for 3 seasons, and then potentially you win 4 games the first year, like I referenced earlier, or 4 games, go 4-13 the first 2 seasons, which I hope to God doesn't happen, but certainly in play here if you draft a quarterback and put him in right away. Then boom, you're on the hot seat entering year 3. That's very, very risky for Aaron Glenn and Darren Mougey.
Right. It could just be the Salah cycle all over again. Or basically the Gay cycle, Bowl cycle, whatever you want to say. This has been going on for way too long. I do not want this to happen again. Exactly. 14 years. As long as we've been alive, we have not experienced by memory of the Jets having any success.
Well, Jack, you're 15, right?
Yeah.
So
I was 1. I mean, I don't really have any memory of it.
That doesn't count. At least you were alive. At least you could say you were alive.
I guess you could say 2015 and the first half of 2022 were our closest parts,
Yeah, 2022 was probably the most fun I've had watching the Jets. I was too young to remember 2015, but you're a few years older than me. Do you remember watching 2015, Jack?
I do. I was actually, I vividly remember watching Eric Decker's game-winning touchdown against the
That's great.
Patriots at my cousin's house, and like my whole family was going nuts. That's
That's
really the only
great.
part of that season. Though.
I've said, Jack, since I've been watching the Jets, probably the most fun, which is very, very sad. I've
Mhm.
had watching the game was week 2 of 2022 with Flacco and his
Browns,
quarterback.
Browns.
Yeah,
Yep,
that was
yep.
such a fun game, getting the onside kick to win and prove to 1-1. And then they
I
continued
know.
a winning record. They
I
had a
know.
fake punt earlier in that game. It was just such a fun game. And then you have a winning record, and then Brees Hall and
Yeah.
AVP go down in Denver, and everything just collapses from there. The main turning point for me, though, overall that season was the Vikings game when Mike White
Right.
was quarterbacking and Braxton Berrios drops that touchdown in the end zone, which you could have had to win the game.
Right.
And he catches that. The season, maybe, the momentum shifts in your direction, and you're
Right.
talking about potentially sneaking into the playoffs there and not losing out. So for
Right,
me, that
and
was the turning point.
we had a lot of, we had a lot of chances to keep that winning record. If Berrios caught that ball, that's 8-4.
Exactly.
Who did we play the next season? Did we play next week? We played Buffalo, right? If we
Exactly.
kept that game
That was
close,
blown out. Yeah, I think they
that
got
was a
blown out that
blowout.
next game.
The first half, I think, ended though 7-7. So if we kept it close, we could have, maybe I'm gonna still say we took a loss there. So 8-5. Who do we play the next week? We played Detroit the next week. If we didn't give up that
Oh,
fourth
that
and
game
inches
was a
play,
mess. The punt return
Yeah.
from Khalif Raymond, former Jet, obviously.
and that Brock Wright touchdown on 4th and inches. And if we stopped them or at least did something, that's 9-5, right? Week 16 Jaguars, we should not have gotten embarrassed like that. Overall with Wilson, maybe
with
I'll take a
Strevler
loss
coming
here.
in. Oh my god, I
Yeah.
remember that. Strevler came into the game in the fourth
Yeah.
quarter. That
The
was
whole crowd was at that
Yeah.
point so desperate that they were chanting for Strevler.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And it was a mess. What was the score of that game? You have it
It
up?
was 23-3, if I'm assuming.
Was
20
that
around
bad?
23-3.
I don't even remember it being that bad. I feel like they were so close in it just because both teams were an absolute joke that
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
And then 2023, obviously, you were still 500 entering the bye after you beat the Eagles, despite all the AR drama. And then again, boom, snowball rolling down the hill. You pile up a couple losses. You're 7-10. I think the biggest thing for this regime is how are they going to snap that curse?
Right. And now I have a question for you, Connor.
Mhm.
Since you're very smart about this team and you have a
Thank
lot of strong opinions on yourself,
Thanks.
if Aaron Rodgers didn't tear his Achilles, do you think he'd be this good Aaron Rodgers that we never got? What do you think the season would have looked like? Because I know people said for
Great
2024, when Rodgers came back, oh, Rodgers is going to save us. But yet again, we're still thinking about those injuries. How do you think not perfectly healthy, because again, he had an injury issue with Packers last year, but he was definitely healthier than entering week 1 of 2024. How do you think we would have went that season?
Great question. My bet was probably if he played the way, not even if he was fully healthy, if he played the way he did this past season, with that defense in 2023, you're looking at 10-7, 11-6, potentially 12-5, something like that. You win a playoff game or two. That just changed the whole trajectory of the season, and they had an opportunity to fix it. That's what annoys me most. You had the opportunity not only to sign a competent backup before the season started, but even when Rodgers went down, you had the opportunity at least to even, give Carson Wentz or Jimmy Garoppolo, someone of that nature, a workout. Joe Douglas didn't even try. It was we're rolling with Zach Wilson and Trevor freaking Siemian as our third string quarterback, and that's who we're trotting out on the field. They had no plan. That's what annoyed me most. Like Zach Wilson, you look what he did in 2022, and I think they just expected Aaron Rodgers to play all 17 games, and he was going to sit behind him for his full season, but that wasn't the case. Like he had to come. Aaron Rodgers didn't finish a full game. He completed one freaking drive.
He was only in for not even a drive. He was in for 4 plays. That's really it too. And I really don't know what Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh were thinking, expecting Aaron Rodgers to play all 17 games behind that atrocious O-line. I really don't know.
It was pressure on every single snap. I remember just cringing every single snap. 1, 2, boom, pressure in the backfield. Literally 2 seconds to throw. He does a good job of getting the ball out quick. I'm not a big Aaron Rodgers fan, I'm going to be honest, but I'm going to, show him praise. He does a great job of getting the ball out quick in that, quick late 1 to early 2 second range, but he's pressured right away every single snap for those 4 plays. Ultimately goes down. I remember watching that, Jack, and I was just like, you saw him standing there. He was like this, standing up, and I was like, please don't go down. And then he just sat down.
My heart sank. My heart absolutely sank. And it got so bad to the point where I got PTSD for the 49ers game. Every time pressure came out, I kind of cringed a little bit and backed up. And I was like, I do not want this to happen again.
It was tough for me watching that game. I went in expecting them to lose, so I wasn't as pissed off as as most of the Jet fans. I didn't think they were going to win it. And then Again, week 3, in my opinion, Jack, was the only game I felt like you're turning
Yeah.
the corner here, and
That's what
that
I
was
thought too,
that
yep.
was the week Aaron Rodgers goes to the media and he says the biggest thing for this team is going to be handling prosperity. That's what he said.
Right,
The
yeah.
toughest thing for this team is how we're going to handle prosperity.
Yeah.
Lose to Denver, lose in London to the Vikings, the game I was at, lose
Yeah.
to the Bills at home.
Oh, you went to
lose
the London game?
Yeah, it was so fun.
Oh, wow.
Everything was great about it except the game. Game was an absolute mess. He was
Right.
pressured every single
Yeah.
time though as well. So it's hard to put all the blame on him there.
Mhm.
However, the whole season was just a mess after that.
Right. It's similar to the 2022 season. You have so many opportunities to win and they throw it away. Realistically, I did a little bit of thinking, right? I actually made a Google Doc here. The Jets realistically could have gone 11-6, right? Zerline makes the kick. That's what 3-1, right?
Mhm.
Aaron Rodgers doesn't underthrow Garrett Wilson against Minnesota. 4-1. Bingo. Zerline makes his 2 kicks, or we stop Josh Allen on that 3rd down and get the touchdown, or at least a field goal. That's possibly 5-1.
That game was terrible.
Yeah.
That game was awful, and the cherry on top was the read option to Josh Allen to seal the game when you
Yeah.
freaking had. I mean, how poorly coached was that team? The fact that you had Michael Clemens lining up on the outside.
And guess what? You know what really pulled the trigger for me? Did you know that? I don't know if you saw the stat, but Clemens, or not Clemens, or first of all, I feel like Clemens should have stayed home. He knew better. I feel like they should have known better than that because Allen is a mobile quarterback. He should have stayed home and read Allen's read option. And second of all, I don't know if you saw this, but I think I read a report a couple months ago on ESPN or something about, I think Ian Rappaport, someone released it. Did you know that Javon, for 6 weeks through the NFL season, Javon Kinlaw was playing 60% of the snaps and Quinton Williams was 40%?
I'm not surprised. He was a mess. Quinn was hurt. I'll give him that. Quinn was hurt for a little while. He was playing hurt for a little while, but Kinlaw was an absolute mess. Someone they signed to a 1-year deal. This past season, Jack, I could pull you a whole folder of clips I have of just such poor situational awareness from Clemens on so many plays. A perfect example was the Cardinals game when they let Kyler Murray literally walk into the end zone with his eyes closed. When you have Michael Clemens, who you could tell didn't watch a second of film on Kyler Murray, doesn't know who Kyler Murray is, to the fact that they run a read option and he overcommits and pulls right away into James Conner as Kyler Murray walks into the end zone. There's so many clips of Michael Clemens. And then jumping on top of the pile in the in the Bills game, which they lost 40-14. It was.
I remember Mosley did that 2 years ago.
Yeah, I remember that too.
And
season unraveled. Literally. After the week 4 loss, I'm telling you, that 10-9 loss, they win that game again.
That's what started it.
And I said that was a must. I went on my pregame show that week, Jack. I said this is a must-win game because after that, you had to capitalize on those 3 games in the Titans, Patriots, and the Broncos. You needed to go 3-0 there, 1,000%. You needed to go 3-0. So after that, you were facing the Vikings, who were undefeated at the time and remained undefeated, the Bills, and then the Steelers.
Right.
You needed to go 3-0 in those games.
Yeah. I feel like, when you were talking about the Kyler Murray, was it Kinlaw you were talking about? You were talking about Kinlaw, right? With the Kyler Murray thing.
No, it was Clemens.
Clemens. They should have pulled a Jamarcus Russell on Clemens and fed him an empty film tape or something. Fed him an empty film tape, see if he would watch it. I guarantee it would have came back. He would have said, "Oh yeah, I watched all that film."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You ever heard of that story?
Yeah, that was a crazy story. In a sense, it reminded me of Kyler Murray a little bit when you said that, to the fact, Kyler Murray, I like Kyler Murray, but I think it's a little crazy they need to put clauses in his contract that he needs to watch X amount of hours of film.
Oh, he's playing Call of Duty.
Yeah,
he's exactly. Playing Call of Duty.
Would you trade Jack, I don't know if you were watching earlier, when we had Gunny on, I asked about, would you trade the 7th overall pick for Kyler, would you?
That's interesting. I feel like Kyler is a very trustworthy quarterback, so I would not be mad at that at all, right? But I feel like I wouldn't mind trading for maybe what, a 2nd round pick. Is he worth 2nd, 3rd round pick?
First and more. Yeah, in my opinion.
I wouldn't mind trading maybe for an early 2nd, maybe late 1st. Maybe pick up a couple key needs.
I would do 2 seconds. That would be ideal for me.
That would be ideal for me. I feel like in the 2nd, I'd pick up some weapons for him. Maybe if Emeka Egbuka. It's doubtful that he falls to the 2nd round. I mean, maybe, but maybe Emeka Egbuka would be a good option for us. But I definitely would not discard the option of trading for Murray. I would not.
Not at all. Again, he has the potential to go down, like I was saying, as one of the best quarterbacks in Jet history. And
Hmm.
it's not that it's a low bar. I get that 1000%. But he's been his floor is really a top 10 quarterback. That's what he showed throughout the entirety of his career.
Hmm.
The Jets would be lucky to have a top 10 quarterback for one single season. And
Right.
then my question to people who say no to that question, Jack, quarterback is the most important position in all of sports without a
Of
doubt.
course. Of course.
Who are you getting at the 7th overall pick who's going to come in and make a greater impact
No
than
one.
Kyler Murray? Exactly.
No
The
one.
answer is nobody. Answer is
Nobody.
nobody. And those who are saying there's no better option than Aaron Rodgers, Kyler Murray.
There is. I could see why people saying that though. I was kind of on board with that, right?
No, I agree 1000% because Kyler Murray is like
Right.
an under the radar type guy.
Right.
He's not.
I would love to have Murray though. I'm not gonna lie. Murray would be a pretty good, especially like you said, having a top 10 quarterback for one season would even be like a dream for a Jets fan, you know? Especially because if Aaron Glenn and Darren Mougey can build around Murray and maybe shape the offense. I don't know if you saw my video yesterday on our quarterbacks
I
team.
listened to it on the bus ride this morning. Yeah, I saw
Thank
that.
you.
It came out. Of course, it came out last night, right?
Yeah. And so I was
Everyone
talking
sub to Jack if you haven't already. Jack Talks Jets. I'll throw it in the chat.
Thank you.
course.
Anyway, I think I was talking about late in the video, I believe, how Andy Reid shapes his offense the way how they're built, right? I feel like a good coach, especially with our new offensive coordinator, I still can't say his last name. Is it Engstrand? I think
Tanner Engstrand, yes.
Engstrand, yeah. So if they can, like, instead of saying, "Oh, it's my way or the highway," some I'm not saying this is all for all head coaches, right? Or not even all coordinators. Some of them can work this way, but I feel like the thing with Andy Reid, why the Chiefs are so good. I gave this example last night in my video, right? He comes in, right? He says, "Okay, I'm not gonna do my way or the highway. I'm gonna see how my players are. I'm gonna build it around them, mold it into an offense that matches so everyone has a key role on this team." And that's why I think the Kansas City Chiefs are so good, because Andy Reid is a smart football coach that knows how to build his team from the ground up and not just do it from where he layers it.
Jack, appreciate you as always. Appreciate you calling in. Any final thoughts? Let everyone know where they can find you.
Everyone, you can find me at Jack Talks Jets or Jack Talks Jets Live. Subscribe to both of them. I do my live shows on there because unfortunately I can't do it on my main channel anymore, unfortunately. Anyways, thank you, Connor, so much for having me on, and I'm excited to work with you more.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jack Talks Jets checking in here on the show. Shoot him a sub, shoot him a follow. One of the best Jets content creators you will find. And like you said, potentially some a weekly show with Jack and potentially another young Jets fan content creator. So stay tuned for that. Should have the official announcement with the date, time, and everything. We have it locked in. We're just waiting to announce it in a few days. So if you guys are in here, you get the exclusive insight, if you will. Appreciate you tuning in. Smash the like, subscribe. I think that's going to do it for me. Over an hour and 15 minutes here on this Tuesday evening. Matt O'Leary, Jets content creator, will join us in his weekly spot on the show tomorrow. So last chance to get your questions in the comments here before we wrap up. Like I said, membership raffle, last chance to contribute to that as well for today's show. Last chance to get in on this month's ends tomorrow, and then we do the raffle on the 28th. If you're just tuning in, you weren't on yesterday's show. Our draft party is officially freaking locked in, baby. Let's go. Boy Green and I on the call starting at 7:15 p.m. for the NFL draft, going from 7 to 15. It's supposed to be like a 4 or 5 hour show. We're going to go through the whole draft, everything. So stay tuned for that. Of course, not possible without you guys. And then our great friends over at Shoreline Sports Cards, one of the best actually, hobby shop, the best card shop you will find in the country. I've been into their store multiple times. Avid card collector. You're not going to find a better shop than Shoreline Sports Cards, located in Port Washington. If you're not in the Long Island area, you can't stop by the store on Main Street here in Port Washington. Give them a follow on Whatnot. Give them a follow on Instagram at Shoreline Sports Cards LI. And of course, our great friends over at Homage, the best vintage sports apparel you will find on the internet. So check them both out. As always, not possible without you guys, not possible without our great sponsors. And I can't wait to do this with Boy Green. A lot of guests, guys, a lot of guests. So please, I implore you guys to come and tune in with us. I know it's a long time away, but I'm telling you guys, mark your calendars right now, because former GMs, current players, former players, personalities, analysts, content creators, and much more will be joining us. So please, guys, stay tuned for that. I'm going to throw the link in the chat. You guys can just click this link on my channel right now because it's already scheduled, and set a reminder for yourself. So you guys will get notified when we go on. I'm just going to throw that in the chat so you guys can, here we go. Boom. Click that link. Once we officially wrap up, set a reminder for the show, and you'll get notified right when we go on. Appreciate you guys. As always, like I said, Matt O'Leary joining us tomorrow in his weekly spot draft. Analyst Cole Thompson joins us here on the show on Thursday for the first time of the new year. Appreciate you all tuning in. That'll do it for me here on this Tuesday evening. I am your host, Connor Long, signing off. Another edition of NY Flight Jets Talk in the books. JTS, Jets, Jets, Jets.